Good evening and welcome to the Maple Plains City Council special meeting. It is June 10th at 5:06 p.m. and I'm calling the meeting to order. Looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Francis,
Second.
second by Fay. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as is, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. First item of business tonight is our public hearing. The public hearing is open to speak about the IUP application for Collision Corner. Is there anyone here to speak for the public hearing? The public hearing is open. Is there anyone here to speak? The public hearing is open. Is there anyone here to speak? I just realized we did not motion to open the public hearing. So looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Francis,
Second.
second by Fay. All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Motion carried. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And again, I will ask 3 times. Is there anyone here to speak for the public hearing for the IUP? Anyone to speak for the public hearing for the IUP application? And last time, anyone here to speak for the IUP application? Hearing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Francis,
Second.
second by Veerock. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Item of discussion this evening is the IUP application for Collision Corner, and I'm going to turn that over to staff.
Go ahead.
Just making sure. Honorable Mayor Council, the item before you tonight for consideration is an interim use permit for Collision Corner located at 5060 US Highway 12. In accordance with the stipulation agreement, settlement and stipulation agreement, the applicants have prepared an application requesting an interim use permit to allow the continuation of the business on the subject property, which includes automobile repair, collision repair, and for sale vehicles on that property. With interim use permits, just like conditional use permits, the city also considers a site plan review. So the subject property, again, it's zoned mixed-use gateway. It's guided by the comprehensive plan as mixed use. It's approximately 0.89 acres in size. And as council knows, there was a settlement and stipulation agreement which provided requirements relating to the physical site improvements that were to be made to the subject property. And there were a series of different areas that were contemplated relating to parking, striping, storage of vehicles. And so with that, there was also details that specified essentially the number of parking spaces that could be provided in particular areas of the property. And so the city had reviewed a site plan and a landscape plan that was prepared by the applicant and presented on April 3rd to the city, dated April 1. The city reviewed that plan, had provided some comments back relating to some of the items that were still not in compliance with now the settlement and stipulation agreement. And those areas were further referenced. The applicant did respond and said that they were going to make some changes to the site plan to be able to comply with the majority of the comments that were made. And the city was waiting on a resubmittal. I will note today we did see a site plan that was resubmitted this afternoon. I'm not sure exactly what time that came in, but we did get a resubmittal that appears to have addressed some of the comments. I haven't had an opportunity to obviously go through fully what that resubmittal looks like. With that said, the issues that we had noted in our report and again in our letter that was back to the applicant related to the Boundary Avenue parking, and that is highlighted in your packet as the parking that is in orange on the diagram And so we noted that parking spaces had to be angled along boundary, and and otherwise they wouldn't fit as perpendicular spaces to meet the city's applicable dimensions for a parking space. And again, the settlement agreement spells out that they have to meet all requirements of the city's dimensions for parking spaces. We also noted that there in the front, which is the purple or pinkish purple area on the map, has parking spaces that don't appear to meet the dimensional requirements, again, standards of the city, and that there were more spaces than what was agreed to in the settlement agreement. So those are the front parking spaces. It was noted that there's 5 spaces permitted, along with 1 required accessible or handicap accessible parking space. And then the back parking area, which is the blue area on the attached map, it was noted that there was some comments that were made by the city. However, the settlement stipulation agreement, once those spaces are striped and the vehicles are parked within the spaces, would be in compliance with the agreement, regardless of exactly how that configuration is made. And then the landscaping plan, it was noted that the landscaping plan didn't fully address the settlement stipulation agreement and the comments or the provisions that were provided within that agreement. In looking at what came back this afternoon, I noted there isn't a landscape plan. I noted that there was some comments by the applicant asking questions on that in the response that was just sent back to the city. So, noting that we hadn't received it at the time we wrote this report, obviously the city received something today. The city prepared essentially 2 resolutions, one which would be a denial resolution based on not complying with the provisions of the settlement stipulation agreement, and then a second resolution which would essentially allow the applicant more time to complete the improvements. Those were included in the packet. Given that a revised plan came in today, council, I don't think has a copy of that, or do you have a copy of that? Jacob, did they?
Just a plat.
Just the map.
Just the
Yeah.
map.
You can see that the comments relating to Boundary Avenue, the spaces, the angled spaces, there were adjustments made to those spaces. The spaces, I mean, I haven't really reviewed that in its entirety. I would note that there's some spaces now that kind of cross over the sidewalk that's out in front of the building. And again, there's no dimensions on those spaces, so I can't fully tell, just looking at them on the plan, whether or not they comply. The 5 parking spaces in front, they look like they do comply with the dimensional standards. I would note the handicap space still doesn't meet the width requirements for accessible space. But that's something that I'm not sure what the reason is for that not being able to comply. And then I noted that the back parking spaces, they do comply with the provisions of the settlement stipulation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions now or take any questions now on the information that I had or the information that was in the packet. And then if we'd like to talk more about any of those pieces, we could do that.
I guess I'd just like to clarify a couple things. I know it was my understanding that council gave direction to staff to send a reminder to Collision Corner. Did that happen?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I sent a follow-up email to Elizabeth Kroll as well as a letter in the mail on the 29th of May, reminding them that as all submittals to the council, I need to have the revised site plan by June 4th by 4 p.m. to be considered by the council.
Okay. So that was sent. So that was Tuesday, June 4th at 4 p.m. And we didn't receive anything until today, Monday the 10th. It looks like it was sent at 1:57, and then you saw it and sent it to council shortly thereafter, around 3:30.
That is correct.
So I've had no time to review this, so I'm not sure how we can vote on something. The letter that was sent, everything that was sent said we needed things ahead of time so we can prepare like we do with anything. Our packets go out on Wednesday. Was there any communication with the applicant or anyone from Collision Corner between the 4th and today?
No.
Okay. Other questions?
My notes from the 29th, and I believe you were at that meeting, Michelle, 29th of April,
Was that a closed session?
was it closed? I thought it was a special meeting, was it closed? Oh. If it was closed, I don't have a question on that then. My apologies. You drafted the 2 resolutions.
Yes, staff requested a resolution denying the IUP application because as of the date that the packet needed to go out, there wasn't a complete compliant site plan. I would note that the site plan per the settlement agreement was originally supposed to be submitted on January 16th, 2023.
The second one was an approval of the IUP with conditions.
Correct.
And the conditions show that the documentation get to the city by the in compliance with the settlement agreement by the 25th of June, and that all compliance issues be completed by the 9th of August. How did we determine those dates?
Those were just suggestions. I think the council would have discretion to set some deadlines there. I would note, we didn't include the option to simply grant the IUP. As I mentioned, staff advised that they did not have a complete site plan, but that would also be an option for you to consider. And then, the terms of the settlement, including its enforcement provisions, would be available to the council as well.
Because I agree with the mayor in that I can't make an informed decision without looking at the most recent document that was submitted by Collision Corner. But on the same token, I know that the applicant can move heaven and earth when his back is against the wall. So my question to council is, do we accept with conditions, but we change the dates to get this done quickly?
Well, council member, that is definitely an option, but this deadline was first January 16th. We extended it to June 4th, and we finally get something June 10th, less than 3 hours before our meeting. So how long
I know.
is this going to go on? I mean, it's another meeting, it's
Yeah,
time.
I think it's time for us to make a decision and stop moving the goalpost.
Administrator Colander.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. One thing I do want to remind too, one of the reasons that we're having the meeting today is because we are nearing the deadline of having to do an approval or denial on the application. So that is one of the reasons that we're having the meeting today as well.
And every time we do this, we're spending residents' money. I mean, we're posting this in the paper, we're having special meetings, and we continue to extend, and it's not being honored. I mean, we even sent a reminder on the 29th. Email and mail.
I get it.
I'm gonna say, we did get the paperwork, and it is hard to make a decision without all the information. And especially when this is the information that is given out to the public. And that's the hardest part about this. but I do believe we do need to make an informed decision on it.
Mhm.
Even though it is last minute, we have my understanding, June 25th is the final deadline. Is that correct?
I'd have to,
I'll
I'd have
defer
to
to
look
Mark.
back,
That's-
for the,
For
for
the
the timeline we
landscaping
have
plan.
to review the plans, though, I'd have to look.
When you say deadlines, are these dates that are imposed?
Well, the city has only so much time to
Right.
review an application.
Right.
We're still well within that time, but we could, and we do have
Also
the
ask
ability
for
to
an
extend.
extension.
Right, we do have the ability to extend again, another 60 days if we wanted to.
Oh,
We haven't done that
wouldn't do
extension
60
yet.
days.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had from
I
January to
would-
June and it didn't
I
get done.
would.
We have months.
Yeah, and maybe we should just be clear that we're talking about the statutory deadline, right? For
Right,
you to make a
not the-
decision.
Yeah.
Not the deadline that was agreed to.
In the court.
Yeah.
Well, the applicant wants to stay in business.
Right.
So, let me pose this. What would be a realistic date? Not the 25th of June. What would be a realistic date to ensure that all the necessary materials are in and they're accurate? I ask you.
I
A
don't
week
know.
from
It's not
today?
my-
A week from today?
I can't answer that. Councilmember Francis?
I think we've given so many extensions already. We've spent so much time and money and effort that we need to make the decision today based on the information we've been able to review that was turned in on time with our last deadline, and it's incomplete, that, you know, we came to the table in good faith to make this a working relationship. The other party has not done their share of the workload. That I can't support it approving an IUP. I'll just put it out there, I can't support it. It's my tax money, our tax money, that's going farther down the road, and enough is enough.
I would remind you that there is a $3,000 escrow that I'm assuming we're working off of. So I do not believe there's any tax dollars spent on these meetings and staff time. Is that correct? Being billed directly back to the applicant?
That is correct.
So the
Okay.
special meetings, the newspaper listing, all your staff time.
So outside of cost to the residents of the city, which technically there should be none, which is why we have escrow, why else are you opposed to giving him, listen, if you want to say next Monday, and if it's not in, and if it's not, I will shut it down. I will,
How many
So
times do
what's-
we want to extend it before we say enough is enough? It was supposed to be in January, now we're June, 5 months later. I'm done.
Even if we would have gotten it last Friday, we could have had the weekend to review it, but we can't expect our staff
correct.
or ourselves.
We had
We all
this-
have full-time, daytime
We
jobs.
had this discussion to make sure that he was aware. I agree. I
Mhm.
And
remember.
we went above and beyond, sending an email reminder and a snail mail reminder. I'm all about grace and second chances, but we tried, and then even tried with the second chance with reminders.
You're absolutely right. There's 30 years of this, and I
Yeah.
don't think.
No, and it's not easy and it's not fun, but these are the facts. Councilmember Burek?
Yes, and so the June 25th, that is the statutory of the application, correct? Is that the date?
No, I have
Oh.
August 1st.
Yeah.
on
August
my-
1st.
On my.
Okay, just,
I was looking back to see what the letters were, but August 1st is the time period we're
Okay.
working with it.
Question, so all the parking spaces can fit on that property that is allowed?
So, yeah,
I mean, I understand the angles to meet the dimensions, but
so right now, the way, I mean, the stipulation agreement determined, number of spaces as long as they met applicable standards, and it spells out what those, that it has to meet the parking dimensions. In looking at the revised plan that came in today, they restriped, or they're showing the striping of the front parking spaces. In front of the building, I noted that we required a handicap accessible space. To be ADA compliant, you have to have an 8-foot wide side space next to the accessible space. That's not shown still on that revised plan. Is there room to fit that? I don't exactly know, because they don't, without printing it and scaling, I couldn't tell you that right this second. The spaces on Boundary, they restripe, or they're showing the restriping of those spaces on Boundary with angles, and that's what we asked. I don't see those dimensions. I noted that there's a sidewalk, that the spaces now are shown kind of
Councilmember Burak, well,
taking over, so.
I appreciate
I
your
don't know.
question and think it's important. This is not a fair position to put ourselves
no,
in.
I just.
We literally
I-
got this.
I just making sure that it's a realistic number. That's my question. It's a realistic number.
Well, it was
Okay.
agreed to
And-
in mediation in court way back in last year
Okay.
by the applicant and the city.
All right. So this is the latest and greatest, and this is supposed to have crossed all the Ts and dotted all the Is and make him compliant with everything. But we just got it today. What if we move the 25th to the 13th or 14th of this week?
Councilmember Francis?
It's just moving the goalposts down the road.
It-
They had.
72 hours.
But they had a set deadline, they
It's-
didn't meet it.
It,
It's been 5 months since the settlement agreement was drawn up and signed by everyone. It needs to stop.
listen. There's a better than average chance that this document we got today is nothing but a Hail Mary to satisfy us. And there's a very good chance that it doesn't meet the specifications set for it. It's here, it's in front of us, 72 hours. Go or no go. If it doesn't meet it, I will shut down the IUP. He doesn't get to submit anything else. This is it. This is it. You don't get to correct anything. You scale it, mark, print it, scale it, measure it. If it doesn't meet specifications, Groenberg is a professional architect or a professional civil engineer. He's dated it, he's signed it, that it was directed under his supervision. He's a smart man. If it falls anything short, it's done. But
Okay.
it's 72 hours.
All right, we've heard from Councilmember Francis, Councilmember Fay, Councilmember DeLuca.
My apologies for being late. This is a concerning issue to me. I appreciate the fact that we got a plan. I find it ironic that the last couple of deadlines that we've imposed on the applicant, literally it's been 3:30 to 4 o'clock each time that the document arrives on our desk. We were to have done a public hearing today. I don't know how you do a public hearing when the public's not been presented with the document that he presented at 3:30 this afternoon. We talked at our strategic planning meeting about transparency and being able to get stuff to the public. I think we're failing ourselves if we don't extend that public hearing to another time when we can get this document out on the public and public can react to it. I'm not prepared to make a decision until I see if the public has some comment about this document. I did a pretty quick review this afternoon. It doesn't necessarily meet all the conditions that are in the settlement agreement. That's not the point of today. The point of today is to try to get what are the public's comments about this so that we can make an informed decision. I would support pushing this for a few days or whatever to get that public input, reopen the public hearing, and then deliberate on this. It doesn't meet all the specs, and there's gonna have to be some very quick adjustments, and we asked for adjustments on early April, and it took you guys 2 months to bring those. That was disappointing at best.
Well, while I hear what you're saying, Councilmember Fay and Councilmember DeLuca, to post the public hearing, this all has to be back in the newspaper again, and does it not? So it's not like we can do this in 72 hours.
Does it have to be reposted though, Jacob?
Yes.
Or could it be extended?
And there's
Can we
not
just
even anyone
continue
here
to
tonight.
Leave it open?
No, you would
We
have to
already closed
repost
it.
it. The public hearing's been closed already. And if I may, to the council, from a staff perspective, there was a deadline, January 16th. The deadline was missed. We gave leeway. Went to court, case was dismissed, had a deadline. Didn't get the right information, sent it back, asked for further information. As DeLuca said, 2 months later, right before the meeting, we get further information. As a staff person, it would be my recommendation to the council to deny this application and stop it at this point.
I just wanted to add some comments on sort of the legal landscape, so you have those facts in front of you as well. If the IUP application is denied, you are left with a property that is out of compliance with city zoning code. There are some legal non-conforming uses that were agreed to as part of the settlement that would apply. So you have to, maybe consider what that means for the city if there isn't a shift to those legal non-conforming uses, and that would be a potential enforcement action to enforce the zoning code. If you do grant the IUP, there are some additional enforcement mechanisms built into the terms and conditions that were agreed to that do give the city a little bit more of, I guess, it gives it an additional compliance mechanism in terms of, if these agreed upon, parking limits and, keeping the landscaping and keeping the property clean are met, there are penalties built into the IUP that you wouldn't otherwise have if the application is denied. So I just wanted to make sure that those facts were as before you as well.
And to, go ahead, Councilmember DeLuca.
Is it possible that there's a middle position here? If the public hearing's been closed and we can't get any more public comment without reposting it for a month, is there a way of simply putting a short time frame, define it as days, hours, whatever, where Mark meets with the applicant to hammer out anything that is not in compliance with that, to see if there is a willingness, and bring back to this group in a matter of hours or days a final answer that we can then, based on a closed public hearing, make a decision? I would feel a little bit better about that than simply saying no tonight.
Well, and just to be clear, if we say no to the IUP, we're not shutting down the business.
It
No, you're
substantially
neutering
changes
him.
the operation.
Right, but I know, but you implied earlier like we were getting rid of the business. I'm like, no.
We're changing this the scope of his business to be in compliance.
Right.
Without the IUP, he can paint cars, but he can't repair them. Can't, what word am I looking for? Can't replace a fender. Can't do damage correction.
Auto body.
Auto body.
So
Correct.
the legal non-conforming uses
Yeah.
specifically are indoor auto service and indoor automobile sales. And those are defined in the settlement.
Agreed upon by the applicant and the city.
Well, I don't know how you want to construct the language, but yes, I would like to give hours or days to this. And like I said, this is the document. If this document doesn't meet all the criteria established, then I am willing to disallow the IUP.
Understand, John, the document as it sits most likely does not
I
meet
know
all
that.
of those.
Well,
But I'm willing to give the hours or days to have Mark hammer it out to bring back something that is. I don't think it would be very hard to make a couple adjustments that would make that in compliance.
why on earth would the applicant give us a non-complete?
Why didn't they listen in January? Why didn't they listen in April? I don't know the answer to that.
And what's gonna change now? What's different now than it was in January?
A threat of a no.
But
there was a threat of a no in January.
Really narrow window.
Okay, well legally, we have to have at least a 3-day posting.
Ma-
We
Mayor,
have to have a quorum, and we have to have staff available. Sorry.
no, Mayor and
Call.
Council, I was just gonna, so I mean, we're talking about revising the plan. There's a couple of things on this plan that aren't gonna they're just not gonna work. You're never gonna make them work. And then there's things that are pretty well done, right? So we're not talking about that much stuff. The settlement stipulation agreement has an August 9th compliance date with actually getting the things
To
done.
be done by.
Well, that's not the settlement, that was what we put in the
In the-
proposed resolution because of the statutory
Right.
deadline for decision.
So I'm wondering if that day I wonder if there's a middle ground where we could get, if the council would feel comfortable approving with conditions and a shortened window for getting the improvements in. And the only reason I say that is if you approve it and you have conditions and then they fail to comply, we have mechanisms now in an agreement to enforce. If we don't do that and we deny, we have different mechanisms, and you understand those, and I think they're more difficult. So I'm just throwing that out because, really we're down to a handicap space in front of the building and a couple of spaces on boundary that don't work. That's what we're talking about. The landscape plan is really black and white because the stipulation agreement says
Spelled
8,
out.
6, 25. There's nothing to that other than they have to perform on that, right? So they need to give us that. But
And a cursory inspection of the back lot between the fences, you feel you're comfortable?
we
with
did
that?
when we initially reviewed. The issue that I have is there's some spaces on boundary, the 3 angled spaces on the south end of boundary and the 1 space that's on the north side of the driveway. They don't fit. I mean, they don't meet our requirements. And if you're gonna provide a handicap accessible space, you could provide that easily with the 5 spaces, and then you'd have a compliant plan.
So the two of you speaking for the city, it would be better to approve it with conditions, and if the conditions aren't met, the mechanisms we have available to us are better for us than if we deny it outright and then we have to enforce.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's a council decision. I'm just suggesting that there is an opportunity to get it to compliance if that's what you want, and we're close to that.
Then take that next step, work with them, and bring it back when it's compliant. Then I'll vote on it. Not before.
So
Michelle has something to say.
so the question I have is on the public hearing was had. You can table this item, you don't have to reopen the public hearing. If you don't, I mean, you held the public hearing, nobody commented. Right, so you could table the item and then we could just table it to your next meeting on the 26th, and by then we could bring you a plan.
And I was gonna say, we're happy to revise a proposed resolution that's consistent with Mark's comments, if that's what the council would like to see.
What date did you say?
24th.
24th?
When is your next meeting?
He said
24th. I'm
26th.
sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
know if there was
He
something
just know,
special
yeah.
about the
Yeah.
And- yeah,
26th.
and I'm okay with that as long as we have a short leash and a short time and it's clear cut. Yes, it's compliant. No, it's not. Done.
Green light, red light.
Yep. No more discussion. It's compliant or it's not.
Okay.
End of issue.
And that would be putting June 18th, having that information for the packet.
Correct.
So that would be making the deadline June 18th.
Is that doable for staff?
It would be June
That's the Tuesday
17th.
before, yeah,
Would be Monday
Monday.
before.
Oh,
1 week from today.
1 week from today. And then if we did that, then I would recommend that we make that August 9th for full compliance date. Be August 1st, 1 week after that.
Why does
You
it
mean-
take 6 weeks to come in compliance with something
I agree.
when they've had 6 months to do it?
Well,
I'm trying to seek to
It's
understand.
striping. That's really it. It's striping,
And landscaping.
landscaping.
I'm just saying if we're giving them till the 17th to get us the final stuff.
Great,
the
have
co-
it by July 1st.
Agree.
Be in compliance by
That's what I
July
meant.
1st?
Sorry, July 1st.
You said August.
I did, but on my calendar, the one is, yeah, July 1st.
Okay. Okay, so do we need to make a motion?
To table the item
To
till your
table the
July,
item?
to your June 24th city council meeting.
Okay, I will make the motion to table the issue.
Administrator Colander?
Sorry, so if we know that we're doing this and we got these dates set, why don't we just approve this second resolution with those dates?
Because I'm not going to
'Cause they
vote
wanna
on
see it.
something until I see it done. Because of the history of the
Might not be able to be
applicant.
done.
He may
And-
just not do it.
And there's the third option that you grant it with conditions, and rather than failure to meet the conditions being a denial, failure to meet the conditions as the first strike under the IUP, so that you can take advantage of those enforcement mechanisms.
Bring it back when it's done.
Then it's a table motion. That's it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Connie.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to table the granting of the IUP until our June 24th meeting.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilmember Francis,
I'll second that motion.
second by Councilmember Burek. All in favor of tabling this discussion until the June 24th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. So then staff, you'll follow up with the applicants with the June 17th deadline and July 1 deadline and all the deadlines.
Yeah.
That will be then written into the resolution.
Yeah, we can update the Michelle can update the resolution.
All right, and Michelle will update the resolution then?
Yes.
Okay, so then after the June 24th meeting, a decision will be made. Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All
No,
right.
ma'am.
Any other city council reports and other business to come before us tonight?
No, ma'am.
All in favor of adjourning, looking for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Francis, second by DeLuca. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. The meeting's adjourned at 5:47.